Woot. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Greet your neighbor, yes, all that, and a bag of chips. It's good to be with you guys tonight. Man, who chose that worship set? Sam? No? Who did? Abby? Wow. I don't know. Some of those are like older Hillsong songs, and man, if you're wondering who the dude in the trench coat was, like going crazy over there, that was me. It was like nostalgia, you know. It was like listening almost to like the Backstreet Boys or In Sync back in the day. You guys, I don't know what's the proper analogy for this like Justin Bieber or something. Baby, that was the equivalent of what give me something. No, I don't know. I'm trying to give you guys something, but like when we go on road trips, Damaris and I, she's witness. When we go on road trips, California, wherever we've driven, that's what we put those old songs on, those NSYNCs and those Backstreet Boys, and we jam hard. It's embarrassing. Actually, some of you guys may have seen like me rapping to Tupac once, but on my wife's Insta Snap thing. But anyway, great choice of songs. I don't know how to make that parallel happen, but man, it's good to be with you guys tonight. It feels like it's been a long time since I've been up here. I don't know. My name's Alex. Nice to meet you guys. I'm one of the, hello. We can wear name tags if that would help, us get acquainted. I've been a little bit busy. I've taken a bit of a sabbatical from speaking. It feels like it's been a little while, but anyway, things are calming down so I can dedicate more time to being up here. But I'm always there with you guys in the pews. What did you guys think about that intro? Genesis. Yeah? Well done, tech team. Well done, voice guy. You will remain anonymous. Genesis. Origin. Do we have the origin tag too? Origins. There we go. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Origin. If you have your Bible, open to page 1. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. We're only going to read a couple verses here and there. I don't want to read the whole chapter because it's going to take forever. And you guys have all read this, I'm sure. I'm positive. I hope so. If you can't find it, page 1 is on page 1, the very first book in the Bible. The table of contents, yeah, right after that. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. I need the voiceover guy to read this. Peter. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. He called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. That's all I'm going to read. Throughout the rest of the chapter, we see that God creates other things, and other things, and other things, and then ultimately creates man, and he says, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish in the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all creatures that move along the ground." Now, I think this is going to be a bit of a different kind of sermon, if you even want to call it a sermon, than what I've given in the past or maybe that we've heard. So I hope you guys bear with me, and maybe we can just have a chat about Genesis and the origin of humanity and of the universe. Yeah? Is that cool? Can we do that? Let's do it. There's a lot of discussion on whether or not the book of Genesis, and chapter 1 actually in particular, is to be taken literally, as in word for word, as in 24-hour periods, as in, is this exactly what really happened? In 6 24-hour days did God create all the things that are spoken about. And how does that all work out? How does this all, there's so much discussion. And actually, this topic, or the origin of life, the origin of the universe, creates kind of theological discussions between us. And so actually what your position is on whether it's literally a 24-hour day or not doesn't really, it doesn't really affect your salvation in any way, shape, or form. So you can have different opinions on it. It's not the end of the world. However, it also creates a lot of division between religion, Christianity, faith, and science. And I think the reason why this wedge with the discussions of origin is created and it pushes faith and science apart, I think it has to do with misunderstanding on both sides, both on science and on faith. So some atheists have hijacked science and have said that science disproves the existence of God. And then, like a blanket statement like that will be thrown out. And then there goes the wedge is wedged a little bit further. Then we have some of us in this room, that maybe, whatever. Maybe, that really deny. You'll run into this when you're in college. We will deny some basic scientific methods like carbon dating. Because we're like, man, that's not for real. A scientist will say, I found this fossil. Look, it's thousands and thousands of years old. How do you account for that? You say the Earth is only 5,000 years old. And there goes, carbon dating doesn't work. None of that, no, okay. And then we polarize these ideas. But I believe that there is a way and there is a point at which science and faith can harmoniously coexist. And hopefully we can get closer to that point for some of us tonight. Science is power. Who had the technology, the better science, the better understanding of how the universe works, won World War II, and therefore shaped the course of history? The Nazis were rushing to create the atomic weapon as well as we were. The Manhattan Project. Had the Nazis succeeded in developing a nuclear weapon, what would today have looked like? What if they created it before us? But they didn't, luckily. Whatever. By God's grace, here we are, right? The good guys, we got it. And whatever your position is on that, we got it, and good. Science is cool. Regardless of what, maybe some of you guys might think, science is really, really cool. And I nerd out so hard to some of these articles and things that I read. Sometimes Damaris told me, had she known how big of a nerd I was before she agreed to go out with me, man, oof. It's serious when your wife questions things. But anyway, I'm like, babe, look at this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And she's totally not into any of that stuff, but she'll listen to the podcast later, and I'll hear about this. But anyway, I'm going to nerd out with you guys a little bit. What do you guys know about science? Do you guys know, let me give you some science. Do you guys know that time travels faster in areas with more gravity than in places with less gravity? Did you guys know that? So in space, time travels slower than it does here on Earth. They recently did a movie with Matthew McConaughey where he goes into space and he lands on a planet with heavy gravity and he runs into some turmoil and it delays his trip. By the time he comes back, people are old, because anyway, it was just a Hollywood twist on this principle, but it's very true. So in lower space, in orbit, we have satellites that are rotating around the Earth. And actually, the internal clocks for those satellites are 38 nanoseconds slower than they are here on Earth. A nanosecond is 1/billionth of a second. So 38 billionths of a second slower than it does here on Earth. Take out your phones. Take out your phones. Yeah, you heard that in church. Preach it. Your phone has a GPS in it. Guaranteed you guys don't have flip phones. You all have the smartphones with all the fancy whatever. Right, yeah. Eddie's opening up his flip phone. The GPS in that phone is right now pinging those satellites that are spinning around the earth at this very moment. And the way that your phone knows that you are at whatever the address is, here right off of Herald in Portland, Oregon, is because it's triangulating between the distance of the satellites that are spinning around the earth. And so that's how you know where you are positionally on this earth. GPS, Global Positioning System. If the satellites in space did not account for that 38 billionth of a second time difference, your GPS would be miles off of where your current location is. Miles. Good luck finding that Dutch Brothers, homie. Where would we go? What would we do without the theory of relativity, Albert Einstein, and the application? 38 1/billionth of a second. And if scientists did not account for that, you wouldn't have a GPS on your phone right now, and it wouldn't work properly. You'd be miles off. How about that? Did you know that this year, I've already missed it? Oh, guys, I didn't run this by you guys. I should have had a pre-screening, man. Sorry, guys. Oh, whatever. Did you guys know that this year, 2017, is going to be the year when we attempt the first human head transplant? 2017. Get it? There's a Russian guy that has like multiple sclerosis or some degenerative disease, and he's a vegetable, the poor guy, and he signed up for this to be the first human head transplant. So all these doctors are now getting together from all over the world, and they're going to hopefully do it this year. They're going to find somebody who passes away. They're going to put them both on the operating table. They're going to cool both of their body temperatures way, way low. They're going to sever both of their heads. They're going to put this guy's head on that body. They're going to inject some stem cells and some other chemicals into his nervous system to help it heal and bond with the new body. They're going to attach the spinal cord as well. They're going to sew him all back up, connect all the blood vessels, all the muscles, everything. They're going to keep him in a clinically induced coma for several weeks. And once all that healing has happened, they're going to wake him up. And we're going to see what happens. How crazy is that? Imagine trying to explain a procedure like this to somebody 30 years ago. Just within our lifetime. Some of our lifetime. Not even me, but close. Imagine. They would have accused you of witchcraft. Not kidding. Do you know that within a decade, we're going to be putting a man on Mars? That's the next big push. There's a space race going on right now due to the advent of reusable rockets. Rockets that we send into space, then they come back down, the engine turns back on, and we're able to maneuver them with the engine and catch them on a ship in the middle of the ocean. We launch them from Florida, we catch them in the Atlantic, we bring them back, we refuel them, we send them back, and we catch them again, and we do this over and over again. And the cost of space travel is going to drop exponentially. Like 2,000 years ago, the Romans worshipped Mars as the god of war. And now we're just like, we're going to go there because we can, because we're man. We're all that is man. Why not? Robots. I don't know how many of you guys look into like Boston Dynamics, a company that Google bought. They have these crazy robots that are just like animals. They can do anything They can climb all sorts of terrain. They could do all sorts of things. Drones. The next big push in the military are rail guns, which are like guns, but they shoot things with electromagnets, so there's no explosion. There's just a magnet that pushes this projectile out, and it's way faster, way cheaper, more economical, and causes much more damage. Lasers are the next big thing in the military. We're going to put lasers on all of these ships and all of these drones and everything. I'm telling you guys, Star Wars and Star Trek is like plausible within our lifetime. This is not sci-fi, something made up that never gonna, this is real. We're gonna be colonizing other planets. We're gonna do all of these. We've already achieved so much scientifically, and we're gonna push that limit, and we have been continuing to push that limit. Moore's law states that, we're gonna be able to double the amount of transistors within the same area every single year, and that Moore's law has not broken down yet. The phone that I had you take out has more computing power in your pocket than the computers that we sent the first man to the moon with. We had weaker computers when we sent the man to the moon than what you have in your pocket. This thing can compute faster, and it's more powerful than what we'd use then. The sky's the limit. Mankind, created in the image of God, was set to rule over this earth, and we were set to this was our kingdom. We were to take dominion of it. We were to take and control and rule over all of the animals and all of the other species, and that is exactly what man has done, and we have pushed the envelope. But all of this progress has come at a price. And it is the age-old sin that man has fallen into before, and that the devil actually fell into. Pride. You guys with me? Pride. These are the common falsehoods that I see all over the internet and all over, people trying to explain away God and trying to explain religion. Quote, science has disproven God. End quote. Or, quote, science is so advanced we no longer need God to explain things anymore. End quote. These are what some atheist scientists are saying and what they believe. That science is so advanced, that man has achieved and done so much, that we are gods now. We are, through our technology, through our advancements, through science, we have become gods in a sense. Here's the truth. Science has neither proven that God exists nor that he doesn't exist. Science provides us with data, and you can write this down if you'd like. Science has neither proven that God exists or that he doesn't exist, but provides us with data, and different people draw different assumptions based on that same data. I look under a microscope and I see the amazing work of God. Look at how the red blood cells behave with the white blood cells. And look at how harmoniously all of the different elements of a cell, the mitochondria, all of these different things, they work so perfectly together. Look at how the cell replicates itself over and over and over and over again. And every single moment of every single day, cells in your body are dying and new ones are being born. And the very minute one misfires, you have cancer. One cell divides out of millions and billions of times a day. One time it happens and you have cancer. I see amazing orchestration, and I see the fingerprints of God all over that. I've observed that through scientific means. Yet somebody can look at that same data and see just a bunch of stardust. Just a bunch of stardust. Evolved amoeba. That's all you are. Just a big germ with a bigger brain. That's it. We just spin around a big ball of fire, and this big ball of fire is actually headed toward another galaxy, and given enough time, we're going to be all crashing and burning. This whole solar system is going to be in a few, billion years or something like that. That's all. That's all we are. That's all you see under that microscope. Yet, atheists have hijacked science for themselves. I don't know why, and I don't know how. Partly because of our negligence, and maybe because we're just, some of us have been a little bit, reluctant to even accept certain things. But I think that science and the observance of these things, for example, fossils and things that we find in the ground, we don't have to write those off as being untrue or fake, or we just don't believe in them. Maybe they can be used to help us understand the history, the scripture and the text a little bit better. Let me give you a good example. An atheist saying that, let me give you this. How many of you guys watch basketball? Okay. So you guys will understand the illustration I'm about to give. Imagine if you take somebody from North Korea. I don't know. Well, bad example. Somebody who's never, ever seen the game of basketball or doesn't know anything about it, right? South Korea. Oh, man. And you're like, you put him to watch a bunch of Michael Jordan footage. And he's studying, and he's like, okay, so I see when he grabs the ball and he's running with it, if he takes any more than 2 steps without throwing the ball to the ground, dribbling it again, some guy on the sidelines blows this thing, it makes a noise, and the game stops, and the other team gets the ball. And I observe that over and over again. So if they take more than 2 steps with the ball, they get called for a violation. Okay. I see that if they don't shoot the ball quick enough before the 24-second timer goes to 0, yeah. If that happens, what? The other team gets the ball. Okay. All right, let me see. If a guy has the ball and he's in the key for more than 3 seconds, that's another violation. Man, the rules of the game are starting to make sense. So you go up to the guy and you're like, hey man, yeah, this is basketball. This is the game of basketball. James Naismith, a guy back in 1891, actually invented the sport. So it was actually invented in 1891, believe it or not. That old. And then the guy's like, no. I've observed the rules of the game. I see the technology with the clocks and the shoes No, this game was invented in the 1960s it had to have been done by an engineer, somebody who really understands the mechanics and the friction on the hardwood floors, what kind of, how to put this whole game together. I'm like, no, dude, no. I have the autobiography of the man who invented it in 1891. No. Look, listen, I have observed the evidence. The evidence is clear. Somebody in 1891 would not have had the knowledge to invent a game as complex as this with all the rules and all the moving parts and all this. I'm like, no, man, it was invented with simple baskets, like just a real basketball, That's all it was, just a couple of people doing that. No, I have observed the evidence. I hope that was a good enough example for you guys. That is basically what happens when somebody claims that science has disproved God. How? You've observed the rules of the game. You've looked around, you see how the rules work, you kind of have an understanding. We can't even measure and observe gravity, really. All we really get to see is like how it affects things around it. But gravity is one of those weird forces we still have know nothing about, because you cannot actually see it. We've been able to observe subatomic particles. We can split atoms, and we've been able to observe the makeup and the parts of that. But gravity is this weird thing, and yet we talk about gravity like it's no big deal. Gravity, look at that, That's basically what it's like. You've observed the rules of the game, and you think you know the guy who invented the game. I think you and I, because I've heard this many times at PSU actually, science has disproven God. I think we concede too quickly by just letting that statement just kind of come and go without us even addressing it. Science has disproven God. We can see that way too quickly. Next slide, please. Science deals with the what. Write this down. And faith deals with the why. Science deals with the what. Faith deals with the why. The story of Genesis 1 is one that is the topic of much debate. So I wanted to talk about this from a different perspective. I hope that the point is coming across to you guys tonight. When somebody says, and I will concede this, when somebody says this to you, science has disproven God, here is what they're actually saying. We have found things, fossils, whatever, that are maybe 190 years old, and you say the earth is only 5,000 years old. We have some sort of evidence to this, with regards to the flood, for example. That's another hot topic where things are debated. Yet, if you look at ancient civilizations in Mesopotamia, there are many stories about a great flood. Yet, I don't even understand why we even talk about that. It's just, it happened, you know? But with regards to origin, Genesis 1, this is the topic of much debate. And this is where I think we fall flat if we read the text literally. 24-hour periods, 5,000, 6,000 years ago, that's it. Yet we have human fossils that have been dated older. We have animals that have been dated older. If we were to read the text literally, it forces us to reject a lot of scholarship in archaeology, carbon dating, argon dating, anthropology. Not anthropology, the store, but anthropology, the study of cultures and societies and other things like that. These are relevant discussions for people when you go to college. This is why I think that the book of Genesis, especially Genesis 1, is more of a metaphor, more poetry. I mean, if we're talking about days, the sun and the moon weren't put in the sky until for a few days later. How would we know how much a morning and a day was, right? These are difficult questions that people ask about this. How could you have had days when we only find out about the sun later on in the fourth day? The sun and the moon are only put in the sky 4 days later. Could it be, open to Genesis 1, could it be that there is a gap of billions and billions of years between verse 1 and verse 2? This is another way of interpreting the text. It's called gap theory. Look at verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, time. God created the heavens, space, and the earth, matter. Time, space, and matter, scientists agree, had to have all come together at the same time many, 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 many billions of years ago when the Big Bang happened. Space, time, and matter all have to come into existence at the exact same time. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. What if there's a big gap here? Now, verse 2 says, the earth was formless, empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Maybe it was created through some sort of a big bang many, many years ago. And then all of a sudden, maybe God has like millions of other universes just like this one. But he picked this one and he's like, oh, look at that rock over there. I'm going to hover over those waters. And then he's like, I'm going to get creative. I'm going to create things now, like this or like that. What is it? How is it? How do we reconcile the sciences as to not look foolish, like we reject anything that is not a 24-hour literal interpretation of the text, yet still look like credible college students, like ones with heads on our shoulders, ones that benefit from carbon dating and things when they work in our benefit, yet reject it when it proves that something is maybe older, a rock is older than what we think it is, and it doesn't conform to some sort of, lineage and to some sort of a date. I challenge you to study the book of Genesis with us through this series and understand what exactly is going on here. I want to finish this whole thing off through this. I have a daughter, and she's really cool. And one day we were going to buy Krispy Kreme donuts. And we go, what's that? Oh. We went to buy Krispy Kreme donuts. And she did the why thing to me. Do you know what that is? She's like, Daddy, where are we going? And we're going to buy Krispy Kreme donuts. Why? Because Mom has a craving. It's the truth. Why? Because I think she's hungry, Hannah. Why? Maybe she didn't eat that much today, and she just, I don't know. Why? Because she was super busy with you guys. Why? Because we have you guys. And why? And she did it to me, and like there came a point where the only answer was, because God. I kid you not. There comes a point where you as a parent, when you guys have kids, you'll see, you're just going to have to say, because that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is, Hannah. We just are getting donuts. That's just the way it is. Okay? We're just getting donuts. But if you ask why enough to any question, the ultimate answer has to be God. And that may sound elementary, but I think if you remember this sermon, hopefully, at some time in the future, you will see that is true. If you ask any question long enough, why this, why that, why morality, when you get to the deep questions of what about good and right and wrong, when that question of why you're getting donuts ends up to the point where you're like talking about right versus wrong, good versus evil, life versus death, the ultimate answer can only be God. And I heard somebody that I respect, an intellectual, like on a YouTube video, mentioned that once, but he didn't like go into explaining, but he said this to somebody who was asking him questions on a panel. He said, if you continue that line of logic and you continue to ask me why, and you follow that, the ultimate answer, it can only be God. And so if you're not satisfied with the ultimate answer I will give you, I can't satisfy your question. And I was like, that's true. If you ask why enough to any question, ultimately, the answer will be God. Questions of faith, only faith can answer. What is the meaning of life? Is there life after death? What is morality? Please stand up, and worship team, come up. What is good? What is evil? How did life begin? Why does something exist instead of nothingness to exist? Why does something even exist at all? These aren't questions of science. These are questions of faith. And origin, and the book of Genesis, that name right there, that means beginnings. So, we're going to be studying the beginning of the universe, right? That was chapter 1. The beginning of man. Beginning of man, huh? The fall of man. And this is what makes the book of Genesis so special. You have the creation of the universe, the creation of man. Man falls, and right away is the beginning of God's plans for salvation. Abraham and Abraham's seed that would ultimately unfold throughout the rest of the Bible. and culminate with Jesus. From the very beginning. From the very, very beginning. In Genesis chapter 3, God already reveals his plan. It's a mysterious text. I can't imagine what people before Jesus must have interpreted that as. Chapter 3, verse 15 says that the Son of Man, talking to the snake, will crush your head and you will bruise his heel. The snake's head will be crushed by a Son of Man and his heel will be bruised. In the process of crushing your head, for ruining God's creation, for causing the fall of man, a Son of Man will crush you, and his heel will be bruised. A suffering Messiah. From the very first pages of Scripture, God shows us his wonderful creation, how he built, it was so perfect, right? Satan ruins it. And he, like a loving father, just can't help himself, and he says, I have a plan, and I will crush your head. And the story unfolds throughout the rest of the Bible. Join us throughout the rest of the series on Genesis. God bless you guys.